The night I was supposed to feel the most proud of myself, I ended up sitting in the back seat of an Uber, staring out the window, wondering if I should have just stayed on deployment. That's how fast things can go downhill when your own sister decides your success is a threat. Let's rewind about 4 hours earlier. The venue? A private event space near Capitol Hill, decked out like some senator's fundraising gala. My parents rented it to celebrate my promotion to lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy. 15 years of active duty, 5 overseas deployments, and exactly 0 scandals to my name. I'd earned that stripe, and I didn't need a party to prove it, but it was a nice gesture, or so I thought. The guest list? Tight. Military brass, a few family friends, some contractors my dad worked with, and of course, my sister Kate, the golden child, CEO of Stratwell Dynamics, the visionary behind one of the fastest-growing defense contractors in the country. You say drones. The Pentagon says, write the check. And Kate cashes it. I didn't expect her to show. We hadn't spoken in over a year, unless you count passive-aggressive holiday texts. But there she was, first to arrive, glass of champagne in hand, shaking hands like she was running for office. The first hour was fine. People clapped when I walked in. A retired admiral gave a toast. I gave a short speech, tried not to cry when I thanked my unit. Nothing dramatic. Then came her toast. Kate stepped up to the mic like she owned the building. She smiled that smug, media-trained smile and said, I'd like to say a few words about my baby sister. Cue the polite laughter. She started with the usual. Natalie was always the brave one. She used to jump off the roof with a towel around her neck like she was Supergirl. Harmless enough, but then she shifted. Her tone flattened out. She also used to set fire to Dad's shed. Twice. Got suspended from high school 3 times. I remember when my parents sat her down and said, college isn't for everyone. Next thing we know, she's in boot camp. Funny how the Navy will take in anyone. Laughter. Not the polite kind. The, wait, is this a roast? Kind. I was frozen. My parents looked uncomfortable, but they didn't stop her. Not one person did. Kate kept going. But look at her now, all grown up. With a uniform and medals and everything. The military really does love a good comeback story. The room went silent after that. Someone coughed. I wanted to throw up. I left before dessert. No one followed me out. You know what the worst part was? It wasn't that Kate humiliated me. It's that she planned it. She waited until I was finally being recognized for something she couldn't control, my own accomplishments, earned on my own terms, and she struck. She's always been like this. Strategic, calculated, and brutal, when she thinks no one will call her out. And you know what? She was right. No one did. But someone should have. I didn't join the Navy because I was broken. I joined because I needed structure. Because I wanted to serve something bigger than myself. Because I knew I wasn't Kate, and I didn't want to be. And after what she pulled that night, I finally stopped pretending we were still family. By the time I got home, the video was already online. Someone had recorded the whole thing and uploaded it with the caption, Defense CEO roasts Navy officer sister at promotion party. Over 50,000 views in 2 hours. The comments were brutal. She totally hates her sister. Why would anyone say that on her big night? This is next-level toxic. You'd think Kate might apologize, maybe send a text, blame it on the champagne, but nah. She posted a selfie the next morning, with the caption, proud of my sister, love wins. Right. That was the moment I knew something had to change. Not just for me, but because someone like her was making money off the same system that I was risking my life to defend. And she thought no one could touch her. Big mistake. If you've ever had family turn on you in public, you get it. If not, consider yourself lucky. But when it comes from someone with that much power and that little conscience, letting it go isn't strength. It's surrender. You don't win against someone like Kate by yelling louder. You win by thinking smarter, by looking where no one else is looking, by remembering that pride doesn't protect you, proof does. So I started asking questions, not about what she said, but about what she was hiding. Because people like Kate, they never swing unless they know they've got something to cover up. And I was done giving her a free pass. Before we go any further, Drop a comment below if you've ever had a sibling try to cut you down just when you were rising up. And if you want more stories where military honor and family betrayal collide, hit subscribe. No fluff, just real stakes. Anyway, you'd be surprised how fast people open up when they think no one's listening. Or how much dirt piles up when nobody's been digging for years. I deleted Kate's selfie from my phone, not because I cared what she posted, but because I knew what came next. She was laying the groundwork. The internet had already seen her humiliate me. Now she was trying to wrap it in a neat PR bow, make it look like some sisterly sarcasm, a joke. The kind of thing successful siblings do when they're close enough to tease each other. Sure, if teasing included public character assassination, but Kate wasn't always like that. Or maybe she was, and I just didn't see it until I got out from under her shadow. Growing up, she was the center of everything. Private school, student council, debate team. She didn't just win, she destroyed. If Kate was in the room, everyone else had to work twice as hard just to be noticed. And if she saw you trying, she made sure you regretted it. I was 3 years younger, less polished, and definitely less useful to my parents' image. I broke things, fought in school. I was the kind of kid teachers politely suggest may benefit from alternative learning environments. My parents thought they were being generous when they sent me to a military academy instead of juvie. Kate sent me a card. One sentence, no signature, try not to get kicked out. She graduated top of her class at Stanford. I barely made it through basic training without punching a sergeant, but I stayed. The structure suited me. It was clear, disciplined, and unlike my family fare. My parents never talked about the military like it was a real career. To them, it was a phase. Something I'd grow out of, once I figured out how to be more like Kate. She had already launched Stratwell Dynamics by the time I was stationed in Japan. She was 28, giving keynote speeches at defense conferences, shaking hands with senators. I was sleeping in a cot on a ship in the South China Sea, patching comms gear during typhoon season. She sent me another card that year. It said, "Don't die." That's what sisterhood looked like in our family. The first time I saw her company mentioned in a DoD bulletin, I thought maybe we had something in common after all. Maybe we were finally serving the same flag. I was wrong. She was making billions off that flag, not bleeding for it. Stratwell wasn't built on innovation. It was built on networking. Kate's specialty. She sold the right ideas to the right people before anyone else thought to ask what those ideas could actually do. She moved fast, faster than oversight. And when the Pentagon needed cutting-edge drone surveillance tech to compete with China, Kate was already in the room, smiling with a prototype under her arm. Of course my parents bragged about her every chance they got. Kate's company is helping save lives overseas, my mom once told me. I didn't bother asking which lives she meant. The funny thing is, I never cared about the money or the attention. I was proud of what I did, even if no one in my family understood it. But that night at the party, something shifted. It wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about power. Kate didn't attack me because she hated me. She attacked me because I was starting to matter in a space she controlled. That promotion had put me on someone's radar. Someone who knew her. Someone who knew me. Because 36 hours after the party, I got a message from an unlisted number. "You don't know me, but I know what your sister is hiding." No name, no details. Just that sentence, and a location. I could have ignored it. I almost did. But curiosity has a way of cutting through pride, and I'd spent the last 2 days biting my tongue while the internet passed judgment on my life. If this was some psycho troll? Fine. I could handle it. But if it wasn't, I went. It was a parking garage beneath a federal office building. The kind of place where no one asks questions because everyone there is already paid to keep quiet. A man in uniform was waiting by the elevator. Gray buzzcut, sharp eyes. He didn't shake my hand. Just nodded. "I served with your old CO, he said. "She told me you're the kind that listens before talking. That true?" "Depends who's talking," I said. He cracked a small smile. "I'm Colonel Richard Grant, retired. I do internal consulting now." I didn't respond. He didn't seem to care. "I'm not here to give you orders," he continued. "Just information. Your sister's company is about to close a $650 million contract with the Department of Defense. That sounds like her, I said. There's a problem, he said. Their drone software's not ready. Not even close. Multiple safety reports have been buried. One of their prototypes misfired in a field test and nearly took out a U.S. convoy, and none of that made it into the official demo. I raised an eyebrow. So why tell me? Because you were there. You know what happens when bad tech hits the field, and because your sister made sure no one else could stop her, except maybe you. He handed me a folder. Slim, with a few printed emails and an incident report. This isn't about revenge, he said. It's about prevention. I took the folder. I didn't say thank you. I just walked back to my car and sat there for a long time, watching the city lights flicker on in the glass towers above me. I knew Kate was ruthless. I didn't know she was reckless. That was the night I stopped thinking of her as my sister, and started thinking of her as a threat. I didn't sleep that night. I laid on the couch, still in uniform pants, folder on my chest, TV on mute. The report from Colonel Grant wasn't long, just concise. It mentioned a test drone switching targets mid-flight during a demo in Nevada. The official write-up said it was a weather-related deviation. The internal version used a different phrase, critical software override failure. And then there was the email. It was short, buried in a string of internal correspondence. One engineer had written, "We all know this code isn't ready. We shipped this to the Navy. We're gambling with lives." The reply? From someone high up in Stratwell's tech team. Then we better hope they never find out. So now I had a choice, pretend I never saw it, or figure out how deep the rot went. First thing in the morning, I logged into a secure military contractor database. Accessing it from a personal laptop wasn't exactly protocol, but I wasn't downloading anything. I was looking at what was public. Stratwell's proposal for the Navy drone program had been filed 3 months ago. The initial request was for unmanned surveillance units with automated threat analysis and optional engagement capability, basically, drones that could ID a threat and, if necessary, fire on their own. No one says autonomous kill systems out loud in these reports. Too controversial, but we all know what it means. The future of war with zero boots on the ground, just algorithms making life or death calls. And my sister was trying to fast-track her place at the front of it. That's when I knew I needed someone who'd actually worked on that software. I remembered the name from the email string, Jordan Wells. Civilian systems engineer. Had been with Stratwell for 5 years before suddenly resigning. No public reason, no lawsuits, just vanished. It took me 2 hours and a couple favors to track down a former Marine who said he'd seen Jordan at a vet-owned bike repair shop in Baltimore. Sounded random, but people who get burned by the system usually don't hang around DC cocktail parties anymore. So I drove. It was a converted warehouse near the docks. Smelled like WD-40 and regret. Jordan was in the back, head under a Triumph, ratchet in hand. Greasy t-shirt, military tattoo half hidden under his sleeve. Looked more like a guy who'd fix your brakes than someone who used to write combat-grade drone code. "You Natalie?" he asked without looking up. "I figured you'd find me eventually. You knew I was coming? You're Navy. You don't let things go. Besides, I saw the video of your sister trashing you. That was cold. You worked for her." Past tense. I waited. He pulled himself up, wiped his hands on a rag, and nodded toward a folding chair. "Look, if you're here to ask if Stratwell cut corners, yeah, they did. If you're asking if I can prove it, maybe. But if you're asking if I want to get involved again?" He laughed. "Hell no." I didn't blame him. But I also didn't care. "She's pushing a $650 million system into active Navy deployment," I said. "If it fails, people die. Not in theory, not on paper. People like the ones you used to serve with." Jordan stared at the floor. That was the pressure point. After a long pause, he finally said, "They wanted full automation, no human delay." I told them it wasn't safe. The targeting system couldn't differentiate fast enough between hostile intent and random movement. "We're talking milliseconds." "But it looked great in demos," I said. "Of course it did. We fed it hand-picked data. Controlled environments. There was one field test where the drone misread a heat signature. Would have fired if the kill command hadn't been disabled. And they buried it? They rewrote the log, scrubbed the footage, fired the tech who reported it. I left before I became the next loose end. Do you still have any of it? Jordan gave me a look like I'd just asked him to donate a kidney. I didn't steal company files, if that's what you're asking. I'm not asking you to, I said. I'm asking if you remember where the bodies are buried. He didn't answer, but his eyes shifted. That was enough. Give me 24 hours, he said. If I can find anything that doesn't put me in a jumpsuit, I'll call you. I gave him my number and left without another word. Back in the car, I sat for a minute before turning the key. I wasn't sure if I'd made progress or just stirred up more ghosts. But either way, it felt like the first real move I'd made since that party. I checked my phone. No messages. But one missed call from a blocked number. No voicemail. I didn't call back. I didn't have to. The deeper I looked into Stratwell, the more I realized this wasn't about one bad test or one buried report. This was about a company built on speed, flash, and the belief that the rules didn't apply when the right people got paid. And my sister? She wasn't just climbing the ladder. She was torching every rung behind her. Jordan called at 6:42 a.m. The next morning, I was already up, coffee in hand, going over a checklist I had no real reason to write, just something to keep my brain busy while I waited for a reason to move. I've got something, he said. You free? I didn't ask questions. 20 minutes later, I was back at the shop. He didn't speak until we were in the back office, behind a locked door, and 2 layers of dusty tarp that looked like they'd been there since the Bush administration. Jordan pulled out a beat-up laptop, booted it up, and slid it toward me. I didn't take anything off the servers when I left, but I made notes, screenshots, from the development logs, QA reports, stuff I saw when they were prepping for the Navy presentation. 80 Formstat. He opened a folder labeled Break Glass. Inside, timestamps, error logs, version numbers, and one short video clip from a drone test in Arizona. The footage was grainy, handheld. A drone flew low over a desert course, targeting 3 mock enemy vehicles with simulated heat signatures. 2 were flagged correctly. The third, a civilian model SUV parked off the course. The drone hovered, scanned, and locked on. If live ammo had been loaded, that SUV would have been toast. QA flagged it as a one-off, Jordan said, but I ran simulations with the same parameters later. It misidentified about 17% of the time. Sometimes it locked onto shadows. 17%? Yeah. In battlefield terms, that's practically coin flipping. He clicked through more images, internal emails between Stratwell's tech team and their executive staff. Some of them weren't just concerning, they were damning. One thread read, Engineer, we need another month to rewrite the behavior tree. It's still too twitchy under heat stress. Supervisor, then keep the heat stress low in demos. Or turn off that branch. Just get through the contract review. I sat back in the chair. This wasn't negligence, it was fraud. They sell the drone as autonomous threat analysis, but the code is so unstable, they manually tweak the parameters for each demo, Jordan said. It's like test driving a car that only turns right if the salesman is holding the wheel. And no one reported this to the Pentagon? I asked. Plenty of people tried. A couple were forced to resign. One of the QA analysts filed a complaint through internal ethics channels and got fired a week later for breach of protocol. I didn't wait around for my turn. You ever think about going public? He laughed bitterly. Sure, and then what? Get sued into oblivion? Watch my clearance revoked and every DoD-adjacent job vanish? They don't just fire you, Natalie, they erase you. I leaned forward. What if you didn't have to go public? What if I took the fall? You serious? I'm in uniform, I said. If I raise a red flag, they can't smear me as easily. They'll try, but it'll be harder. I can go through JAG for guidance. If this gets pushed through and deployed, people I serve with could die. That's not hypothetical, that's personal. Jordan shook his head slowly, like he couldn't believe what I was saying, or maybe that I had to say it at all. All right, he said finally. But if this goes sideways, I was never here. I was never in your shop. He smiled. Deal. He handed me a flash drive. It's not everything, But it's enough to get someone's attention if they're actually looking. It's Clive to Mander and Withrows. I slid it into my pocket and left through the side door, trying not to think about how many laws I was possibly about to bend or break. Back home, I made one call to an old friend stationed at the JAG office on base. I didn't say much, just asked to meet for lunch. She agreed. Smart, tough, and not easily rattled, exactly who I needed. At lunch, I laid it out for her. Not the details, just the situation. A contractor pushing unproven autonomous weapon systems through a high-stakes review. Data hidden. Engineers threatened. A clear risk to service members if deployed. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, "Are you planning to leak classified material?" "No," I said. "Everything I have is civilian internal. No DoD markings, no classified tests, no military files." She nodded. "Then technically, you're still a citizen exercising your rights. Just don't do it in uniform. And don't use government channels, unless you're ready for it to get political fast." "I'm ready," I lied. "You're playing with fire, Natalie. These companies have entire departments built to handle people like you." "Good. So do I." She slid a napkin across the table. "A phone number. If it gets heavy, call this group. They're not government, but they've helped people before. Whistleblowers, military and civilian. They know the ropes." Tenser. I took the napkin, folded it once, and tucked it into my jacket. That night, I stared at the flash drive on my desk, like it might explode. It didn't feel like evidence. It felt like a live wire. One wrong move, and everything could burn. But if I let it sit, someone else might pick it up after another name showed up in a casualty report. That was the last night I slept with my phone on loud. I booked a cheap hotel room under a fake name just outside Arlington. Not because I was being followed yet, but because I needed to work without distractions. The flash drive sat on the desk next to my laptop, a second coffee cooling beside it. I'd reviewed the files twice already, but this time I was going to dissect them like an enemy playbook. The drone footage was worse the more I watched it. Frame by frame, the lock-on wasn't a fluke, it was systemic. The targeting system showed false confidence, assigning threat levels to heat signatures that didn't meet minimum criteria. Civilians, animals, shadows, anything moving fast enough in the right thermal range got flagged. This wasn't faulty hardware, it was rushed software wrapped in fancy branding and defense buzzwords. Stratwell was playing chicken with battlefield ethics, hoping no one pulled the handbrake before they crossed the finish line. I started mapping out a timeline. Stratwell filed their contract proposal in April. Internal development logs showed instability as late as June. The Nevada test, the one that almost wiped out a friendly convoy, happened mid-July. And yet, the finalized contract review was scheduled for late August. I still had time. I submitted an encrypted request to the Pentagon's Internal Review Board. Not a complaint, just a formal question regarding vendor software testing protocols. No names, no whistleblower flags. Just enough to show someone inside the building that at least one person was paying attention. Within 3 hours, I got an auto-reply, then silence. That same night, my building's fire alarm went off at 3:14 a.m. I grabbed my phone, wallet, flash drive, and got out. False alarm, apparently. The front desk clerk apologized, said it was probably dust in the system. I believed him, but I checked my door for scratches anyway. Then I wiped the laptop, tossed it in a dumpster 6 blocks away, and bought a burner. I called Jordan again, asked if anyone else knew we were talking. He said no, but I could hear the tension in his voice. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. He'd lived through this part already. "You still want to push it?" he asked. I didn't hesitate. "All the way." He gave me the name of a reporter, Vanessa Moreno, military beat, known for covering black budget scandals and contractor fraud, the kind of journalist who still dug for facts instead of likes. I reached out using a masked email account, gave her just enough detail to know I wasn't bluffing. She replied in less than 20 minutes with a meeting location and 2 words: "Bring proof." We met at a food court in a government complex downtown, dozens of people around, no one paying attention. She looked exactly like her byline photo. Sharp blazer, no nonsense, the kind of expression that made liars uncomfortable. You military? She asked without introduction. Active duty, I said. Then let's skip the small talk. What do you have? I handed her a drive copy only, stripped of anything traceable. She pulled out a tablet and started scanning through it right there. No reaction on her face, just a pen tapping her notepad every few seconds. After 10 minutes, she looked up. This is enough to open questions, she said. Not enough to break it. I can get you more. Internal reports. Names. Maybe even someone who'll talk on record if I can convince them. She raised an eyebrow. You're willing to go that far? I didn't put on this uniform to watch someone turn it into a sales pitch. That was the first time she smiled. I'll dig into the contracting logs. I have sources in procurement who owe me favors. If Stratwell doctored anything to get this deal through, it'll be buried in amendment clauses or last-minute overrides. She packed up her tablet and stood. If you're smart, you'll disappear for a bit, make noise from a distance. Not really my style. Yeah, she said. I figured. Back in my car, I checked my email. A message had come in on the secure channel I set up through JAG, an anonymous drop, no text, just an attachment, a redacted safety incident report tied to Stratwell's test site in Nevada. Buried in the footnotes was a note from an Army liaison. Risk tolerance exceeded for autonomous demonstration. Recommend delaying Phase 3 pending software audit. That audit never happened. The contract moved forward anyway. Now, I had 3 things Stratwell couldn't explain away. Test data, internal emails, and a blocked safety recommendation ignored in favor of speed. And they had no idea who was putting the pieces together. I wasn't naive. I knew how these things usually went. Big companies don't panic when you show them truth. They panic when you show up with a flashlight and a badge. And while I didn't carry a badge, I did carry something else. Motive, access, and just enough public standing to make smearing me a risk they couldn't easily manage. Still, I knew it was only a matter of time before Kate found out. She always paid people to monitor threats, usually PR scandals or legal friction. This wasn't either. This was personal. And it was going to get loud. The first shot came from a podcast. One of those corporate-sponsored defense industry shows where everyone speaks in acronyms and pretends drones are saving democracy. They ran a full segment on the dangers of internal sabotage in military innovation. The guest? A senior consultant at Stratwell, formerly Kate's college roommate. She never mentioned me by name, but the message was clear. Sometimes the most dangerous threats to national security aren't foreign. They're internal. People who resent success. People with grudges. Accident. It didn't take a genius to fill in the blanks. By that afternoon, my inbox was full of forwarded links and vague warnings from colleagues. One even asked if I was doing okay mentally. Subtle. The smear campaign had begun. The timing was textbook, Kate. Create a narrative early. Shape the perception before the facts can speak. I knew the strategy. Hell, I'd seen her use it on competitors, ex-partners, even our own cousin during a property dispute. Public perception was just another asset on her balance sheet. Then came the video. A clip surfaced on a defense forum. Grainy surveillance-style footage from a training accident 8 years ago. It showed me blurry and younger arguing with a fellow officer during a live-fire drill. The footage cut abruptly, as a loud explosion went off in the background. The caption? Unstable Navy officer caused training mishap. This woman is now trying to derail a multi-million-dollar program. It was total garbage. That explosion was a controlled demo that went off exactly as planned. The argument had been over safety gear, my safety gear, which the other officer had conveniently forgotten to issue me before the drill. I'd filed a report. He got reprimanded. But now, sliced out of context and reposted, it looked like I was the reckless one. I tried reporting the video. The platform responded, "Does not violate our community standards." Jordan called that night, pissed. "She's burning you down before you can speak," he said. "You need to hit back." "With what? Logic?" "With noise," he said. "She's not afraid of being wrong. She's afraid of being irrelevant. Make her relevant in the worst way." I knew what he meant, but I wasn't ready to play dirty. Not yet. Instead, I went back to Vanessa Moreno, the reporter. "Are you seeing this?" I asked. "Oh, I'm seeing it," she said. Classic deflection. "They're trying to make this about you instead of the system. Can we kill it? No. But we can outpace it. If I can verify that safety report you sent and tie it to actual contract movement, we might have something they can't PR spin." So that's what we did. Vanessa worked her contacts in procurement. I traced the movement of Stratwell's internal comms and tracked down a second former engineer, this one anonymous, terrified, but willing to hand over a meeting transcript between Kate and her senior developers. The transcript was short, tense, and full of corporate jargon, but one line stood out. "Kate, if the Navy wants autonomy, we give them the version that acts like it. We don't need it to be perfect, just passable until review clears." When I read that, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so very her. The same woman who'd once convinced our parents to co-sign a private jet lease for a tax deduction, now playing software roulette with military hardware. Vanessa prepped the story. No names yet, but she outlined everything: flawed targeting systems, ignored safety protocols, manipulated demos, all centered around an unnamed major defense contractor with ties to top military decision-makers. It went live at 7:04 a.m. on a Tuesday. By 8:15, Kate called me. I let it ring out. At 8:18, she sent a message, "Call me, now." At 8:22, she sent another. "This isn't going to end how you think." She still didn't get it. This wasn't about how it ended. It was about stopping what she was so sure no one could stop. By noon, the story had spread. Defense blogs picked it up. One retired general tweeted it with the comment, "If true, this needs immediate investigation." Vanessa was scheduled for a radio segment. A congressional aide I barely remembered from a seminar 6 years ago sent me a text. "Is this the same Stratwell that's up for final drone clearance? Because if so, my boss is going to lose it." But while the public started paying attention, Kate escalated. She called my parents. I know this because my mom left me a voicemail that was exactly 27 seconds of disappointed silence, followed by, "Why are you doing this to your sister?" No mention of the safety concerns. No concern for the people those drones could hurt. Just panic that the family name might get dragged into it. Jordan called again that night. "She's gonna come for you next," he said. "Not just your rep, your career." I wasn't surprised. Stratwell didn't play defense. They nuked obstacles. And now, I was the obstacle. I didn't recognize the name on the internal report until I got a call from my CO. "Lieutenant Commander Walker, you've been flagged for conduct review." There was did. The sentence hit harder than I expected. I wasn't shocked. Kate moved fast when she wanted to, but hearing it in that tone, from someone who'd served beside me for years, made my chest tighten. "What am I being reviewed for, sir?" I asked. "There's video footage circulating. Allegations of insubordination, unauthorized access to secure databases. And this is the part I'm reading word for word. A pattern of behavior, suggesting compromised judgment due to personal bias against an approved government contractor." Translation? Stratwell was accusing me of hacking their systems and going rogue. They didn't just want to stop me, they wanted to discredit everything I'd ever done in uniform. I asked my CO for a copy of the video. He didn't send it directly, but someone else in the office forwarded me the link with a simple note. "You should see this." It was a 23-second clip, time-stamped from a base I'd been stationed at 4 years ago. It showed me walking into a secure server room. The camera angle was tight, but clear. I typed something into a console. The video cut to a close-up of the screen, my name, system access, and a string of lines running across the terminal. The caption? "Military officer manipulates access logs to conceal data breach." Source: anonymous contractor. There were 2 problems. First, I'd never worked in that building. Second, I wasn't even in that country during the date on the footage. But to someone scrolling through Twitter or watching the evening news, it looked damning. I was just another overambitious soldier taking swings at private industry because I couldn't hack it in the real world. Classic Kate. Hit hard, confuse the timeline, flood the zone with doubt. By the end of the day, I was pulled from active briefings. My clearance was placed under review. I was still technically on duty, but frozen stuck in limbo with a cloud over my name. Vanessa Moreno called me that night. Her voice was sharper than usual. I just saw the video. Have you responded? Not yet. Good. Don't. We're working on it. Misha's every new to date. She'd already sent it to 2 digital forensics labs. Both flagged inconsistencies, metadata edits, pixel mismatches, and frame splicing. The footage was cobbled together from at least 3 different sources, none of which matched my real deployment records. Whoever made this didn't care about being subtle, she said. They cared about being loud. It worked. Even people I trusted started stepping back. Not out of malice, out of fear. Military bureaucracy loves a clean name. The moment yours isn't, people act like association might stain them. I kept my head down, answered every question by the book, but inside, I was boiling. I'd spent 15 years doing the right thing in a system that wasn't built to reward it, and the moment I stepped out of line, not even illegally, just morally, I was being dragged like some conspiracy nut. But I still had one card left. Jordan. He texted me that night. They're scared. You're close. I asked what he meant. He sent back a name, Max Dellinger. Max was the lead AI engineer on Stratwell's drone project. Publicly, he'd been loyal. But privately, Jordan said he'd nearly walked off the project 3 months earlier, after Kate ordered him to disable certain safety protocols to boost real-time reaction rates in the demo. The same protocols meant to prevent friendly fire. Max had kids, a mortgage, a career that would evaporate the moment he broke ranks. But something about the smear campaign pushed him over the edge. Jordan got him to talk. We met in the back of a bookstore that hadn't sold a new title since the Bush administration. Max looked like he hadn't slept in days. He kept checking over his shoulder like someone had followed him. Honestly, maybe they had. He didn't bring documents, just his phone. One video. Unedited footage of a live fire demo Stratwell had never released. The drone targets a structure marked hostile, then suddenly veers, locking onto an unmarked vehicle parked 60 meters away. The test supervisor yells, "Abort," 3 times. The drone fires anyway. That was the prototype Stratwell claimed passed all final safety benchmarks, Max said. But this footage? This is what actually happened. I watched the screen flash, then cut to black. Max looked at me and said, "This wasn't a glitch. The software override they used removed the last human check. It was intentional." I exhaled slowly. "You willing to make a statement?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not unless someone can guarantee I keep my job, or at least don't lose my house." I nodded. That was fair. People like Max weren't cowards, they were just realistic. Not everyone has the luxury of risking everything. But his video? That was proof. Real proof. No edits, no fakes. Just raw failure. I sent it to Vanessa. She didn't respond with words, just a checkmark emoji. That's when I knew she was prepping for something big. But I couldn't wait for the media to fix this. Kate had tried to destroy my name. Now it was time to challenge hers publicly, directly, and under oath. The invitation wasn't official. It came as a recommendation for testimony from a subcommittee aide whose name I didn't recognize, but whose boss sat on the House Armed Services Committee. The message was simple. If I had information related to a defense contractor's ethics violations and technology risks, I could request to appear at the upcoming procurement oversight hearing. Closed-door session. Under oath. I didn't hesitate. This wasn't about whistleblowing anymore. It was about confrontation. Kate had been operating behind layers of legal armor and media spin. But in a congressional room, with mics live and transcripts rolling, her words couldn't be rewritten. The hearing took place in a chamber smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, worn chairs, water pitchers that hadn't been changed in years. It looked less like Capitol Hill and more like a high school debate tournament with better suits. There were 12 members present. Most looked bored until they saw me walk in. A woman in uniform tends to change the temperature of the room. I wasn't scheduled to speak first. That honor went to Kate. She walked in, like it was a shareholder meeting, heels clicking, tailored navy suit, confident but not cocky. She made a point to nod to me as she passed. That same fake smile move she used back in high school debates when she knew she was about to wipe the floor with someone. Her testimony was polished, predictable. She called Stratwell's contract a landmark in tactical evolution and said their tech would reduce American casualties while maintaining combat superiority. She emphasized partnerships, innovation, and of course, unwavering commitment to ethical deployment standards. She even cited an independent safety audit, conveniently omitting that it had been conducted by a firm her company partially funded. When it was my turn, I didn't start with the drones. I started with the funeral of a Marine I'd known, who died on a mission delayed by faulty surveillance. I didn't name him, I didn't have to. Everyone in the room understood what a real consequence looked like. Then I told them what Stratwell was really deploying: untested systems, fake simulations, and corporate doublespeak dressed as progress. I gave them the timeline, the flagged incidents, the buried safety report. I told them about the software that couldn't distinguish a heat signature from a shadow, and how a drone almost opened fire on a U.S. convoy during testing. I referenced internal communications ones Vanessa had already verified through third-party sources. Kate didn't flinch, but I could see her jaw tense. She wasn't used to someone speaking in a room she couldn't control. One of the members interrupted. "Lieutenant Commander Walker, you're under investigation yourself, are you not?" Clicksnote. "I am," I said, "based on fabricated evidence traced to anonymous contractors, none of which have been verified. Meanwhile, the incidents I've reported are supported by multiple witnesses and unreleased test data." Another member asked if I was acting out of personal vendetta. I looked him straight in the eye. "Would it make a difference if I were? Or does it only matter if the facts are real?" Silence. Kate finally spoke again. She asked to respond to my allegations. She said the reports had been taken out of context, that all systems undergo iteration, that defense innovation demands risk, that some voices, even well-meaning ones, can be misinformed. I let her talk. Then I slid a printed transcript across the table. "Page 4, I said. "Your own words, telling your team to make the drones look autonomous, not be autonomous. Look." A few of the members read. One shook his head. Another muttered something I didn't catch. Kate stayed calm, but I knew that look. That tiny glitch in her expression when control slipped, even slightly. The hearing wrapped 2 hours later. No one applauded. No decisions were made. That's not how these things work. Congress doesn't act, they observe, request follow-ups, form subcommittees. But in that moment, something shifted. I knew because Kate didn't look at me on the way out. And more importantly, neither did anyone else at her table. Outside, Vanessa was waiting on the sidewalk, phone already out. "You just threw a wrench into their entire contract cycle," she said. "Good. They'll hit back harder now. I'm counting on it." Back at the hotel, I turned on the news. One of the evening shows was already running a split screen. My face on the left, Kate's on the right. The chyron read, "Military officer challenges $650M defense contract over drone safety concerns." Jordan texted one word, "Damn." And then, right before I turned in, a new email popped up in my inbox. No subject line, no signature, just one sentence. "She's not done yet. It's not dead." I didn't need to ask who sent it, or who it referred to, because neither was I. I didn't go home that week. Not because I was afraid, though maybe I should have been, but because home was no longer neutral ground. My name was being debated on cable news panels, dissected in defense blogs, and misquoted in 3 languages. I'd become a symbol. To some, a patriot standing against corruption. To others, a disgruntled officer with a grudge and a PR stunt. And right in the middle of all that noise was my family. My mother finally called. Not a voicemail this time. Actual words. Actual tone. Except it didn't sound like her voice, it sounded like she'd rehearsed it. "Why are you doing this to your sister?" That again. "I'm not doing this to Kate," I said flatly. "I'm doing this because she lied. Because what she's pushing isn't safe. She says you're exaggerating. That this is personal. It is personal. You know why? Because the people those drones will put in danger are my people, not hers. She sells them. I serve beside them." There was a pause, then a soft, tired sigh. "You're tearing this family apart." "No, Mom," I said. This family tore itself apart the minute you all decided it was easier to stand behind someone successful than someone honest. She hung up. That night, I got another message, this time from my father. No speech. Just a forwarded email Kate had sent him. It was a full dossier on me. Therapy visits after my second deployment, a minor disciplinary note from 6 years ago, and a handful of private emails I'd sent during rough patches. All real, all irrelevant, but packaged just right to look like a warning sign. It was clear what she was doing. If the congressional hearing couldn't shut me up, maybe character assassination could. And that's when I knew she was willing to drag the whole family through the dirt to stay clean herself. I called Jordan. She's going nuclear, I said. She always does when she's losing, he replied. You ever see her handle a real crisis? No. That's because she doesn't handle them. She buries them. She's good at chess, but real life isn't turn-based, and you just knocked over the board. We met again the next morning in a parking garage downtown. He handed me a burner phone. Use this from now on. Your regular number's probably compromised. I took it without question. At this point, trusting Jordan felt more secure than trusting most of my own blood. He also had something else. An internal Stratwell recording, not public, not authorized. It had been passed to him by someone still inside, an employee sick of watching everything rot from the inside out. In the clip, Kate is on a call with her board, clearly agitated. If the military pulls this contract, we don't just lose revenue, we lose leverage. That prototype was a statement. If we show weakness now, we're done. One of the board members asked if the software issues were resolved. They're resolved enough, Kate snapped. We don't need perfection, we need headlines. There it was, her doctrine in one sentence. Not results. Not safety. Headlines. I didn't share the audio right away. I sent it to Vanessa first, asking her to confirm its source. If I went public with something that serious, it had to be bulletproof. While I waited, my JAG contact called. You've been cleared, she said. The review board ruled the footage against you as doctored and not credible. My hands clenched around the edge of the sink. Are they reinstating my clearance? Yes, but unofficially? They're watching. You've rattled too many cages for this to be over. Good, I said. I'm just getting started. Then I made one more call, this time to my brother, Brian. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 years. He'd always played the middle in family wars, pretending neutrality while quietly siding with whoever had the power. But Brian was smart. Numbers guy. He followed trends. If the tide was turning, he'd already know which way to lean. He answered on the second ring. You're blowing up the group chat, he said, half joking. Didn't know we still had one, I replied. He paused. You're serious about this? As serious as I was about enlisting. And just like back then, nobody supported that either. She's your sister. And she's risking lives to close a deal. You think she's still going to protect you when this explodes? You think you're immune just because you kept quiet? He didn't respond right away. Then he said, I read the Moreno piece. I saw the video. And I don't know what to believe anymore. But I know if even half of it's true, she's not the victim. That was more than I expected. I didn't ask him to pick a side, not yet. But it was clear. The loyalty that held our family together for decades wasn't built on truth. It was built on fear, image, and silence. And I was the first one to stop pretending. I sat in the back booth of a diner in Alexandria, a stack of legal pads in front of me, none of them helping. The truth was all there, scattered between emails, video files, and whistleblower statements. But what I needed now wasn't just truth. I needed leverage, something so clear, so undeniable, that even the most politically cautious name in the Pentagon couldn't ignore it. That's when Vanessa called. We got the metadata back on the boardroom audio, she said. It's clean. Not altered, not stitched. 3 separate labs confirmed. The timecode matches Stratwell's own internal call schedule. Are we sure it's Kate's voice? She didn't answer right away. Then, I had a voice print analyst check it. It's her. That was it. No more gray area. No more plausible deniability. No more branding her recklessness as vision. Now it was verifiable. She knew the drones weren't ready, knew the data was cooked, and pushed forward anyway for image, for profit, for leverage. I asked Vanessa how fast she could publish. Already scheduled, she said. We go live in an hour. 60 minutes later, my sister's voice hit the internet. Not some spin-doctored version, not a vague blog quote. Her actual voice, saying, "We don't need perfection, we need headlines." That one sentence spread like wildfire. Defense Twitter lit up. Military Reddit was chewing it apart. The Washington Chronicle reposted the full transcript with the headline, "Stratwell CEO caught on tape prioritizing optics over safety." It wasn't just scandal anymore. It was evidence. By mid-afternoon, the Pentagon issued a brief but loaded statement. "We are aware of the reports and are conducting an immediate review of all relevant contracts with Stratwell Dynamics." That phrase, immediate review, was the bureaucratic version of a death sentence. Once those words show up in public, funding freezes, committees activate, and people start jumping ship. By 5 p.m., 2 Stratwell board members resigned. By 6, their general counsel posted a vague tweet about internal restructuring and clarifying executive messaging. And at 6:35, I got a call. Kate. I stared at the screen for a full 30 seconds before answering. "Nice timing," I said. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't defensive. It was cold, controlled. "You have no idea what you've just done," she said. "Really? Because from here, it looks like I just exposed fraud, stopped a dangerous system from being deployed, and reminded the world that integrity still matters." 23:23. This isn't over. For you, maybe it is. She paused, and for the first time since this entire thing began, I heard something crack beneath her composure. "Do you think this makes you righteous?" she asked. "Like you're some kind of hero?" "No," I said. "It just means I finally stopped pretending you were one." She hung up, and just like that, the silence hit harder than anything she could have said. I thought I'd feel relief. But what I felt was emptier. Like I'd just taken a wrecking ball to a house that had been leaning for years, and now all that was left was dust and broken wood. I turned my phone off and drove. No destination in mind. Just roads, streetlights, the hum of tires on pavement. I didn't even realize where I was heading until I pulled up in front of the old family house. The lights were off. The porch still had that crack on the third step, the same one I tripped over the night before I shipped out. I didn't go inside. I just stood there, looking up at the window that used to be mine. 15 years of service, countless nights under fire, and this was the battle that finally broke me open. I wasn't the same person who walked into that promotion party 2 months ago. I wasn't trying to be celebrated anymore. I was trying to be heard. Behind me, a car pulled up. Jordan. He didn't say anything as he stepped out and stood next to me. We both stared at the house. He finally asked, "Think she'll bounce back from this?" "She always does," I said, "but not this time, not clean." He nodded. "You did something most people in your position never would have risked." "I didn't have a choice." "You did, you just picked the hard one." We stood there a bit longer, 2 veterans, 1 house, 1,000 miles between what used to be and what was now. I turned to go. "Before I got in my car," Jordan said, "you know what you should do next? Run for office?" He laughed. "Hell no. But maybe write the speech for someone who should." It's not too nine. That night, I sent one last file to Vanessa, a copy of my official statement to the Navy Review Board. Clear, direct, nothing dramatic, just truth. It ended with one sentence. "We don't serve the flag by hiding what dishonors it." I didn't need anyone to applaud. I just needed them to listen. The first official blow landed 3 days after the recording leaked. The Department of Defense released a press statement announcing the immediate suspension of Stratwell Dynamics' $650 million drone contract. Effective immediately, all pending procurement phases were frozen. All further testing and deployment schedules were under review. A temporary compliance team had been assigned to Stratwell's headquarters. They didn't use the word fraud. They didn't have to. Anyone in the defense world could read between the lines. Stratwell was radioactive now. And Kate? She was silent. For a woman who'd once published op-eds in Defense Weekly and guest-starred on morning finance shows, the absence of her voice said everything. No denial, no counter-narrative. Just a vacuum where her confidence used to be. But what came next was worse. Senator Trent, head of the Oversight Subcommittee, went on live television. He held up a printed screenshot of Kate's quote, "We don't need perfection, we need headlines," and read it aloud to the press. "This is not the standard by which we send American technology into conflict zones," he said, "and it is certainly not how we protect the lives of our service members." Within 24 hours, Stratwell's stock price cratered. Investors fled. An emergency board meeting was leaked. Reports came out that Kate had been asked to resign pending the outcome of a broader investigation. She hadn't officially stepped down yet, but sources close to the company said she was no longer in operational control. Jordan sent me a one-word text, collapse. I should have felt vindicated, maybe even triumphant, but all I felt was tired. 15 years in the military teaches you that no win ever comes clean. There's always damage, always fallout, especially when it hits home. And now, home wasn't just broken, it was scorched. I got another call from my mother. This one didn't sound rehearsed. She didn't open with guilt, or accusations, or warnings. She just said, "I don't understand how we got here." I didn't have the energy to explain it again. The years of silence, the blind loyalty, the way they propped up Kate because her success made them feel safe, even if it came at the expense of everyone else. Instead, I just said, "You didn't ask questions," and she counted on that. There was a long pause. Then, she says she didn't know the software was that flawed. She sat in a meeting where her own engineer warned her. "It's on tape." She says it's taken out of context. I nearly laughed. Is that what she told you? Or what she told herself? Mom didn't respond, but she didn't hang up either. "I don't want to lose both my daughters," she whispered. "You already did," I said, and ended the call before she could reply. Later that night, I got an email from Brian. Short. Just a screenshot of a private message Kate had sent him. "You don't betray family over headlines. You don't take sides just because someone makes noise." Brian's message underneath. "I guess she still doesn't get it. This was never about noise." I didn't reply. But I finally felt something I hadn't in weeks: clarity. Kate wasn't going to jail. She was too smart, too well-connected. She'd lawyer up, spin the story, maybe even pivot into another field after enough time passed. But she'd never wear the same crown again. She'd lost the one thing she couldn't buy back: trust. And no PR firm in the world could fix that. Vanessa ran one final follow-up story titled, "From Sister to Soldier, How One Navy Officer Held the Defense Industry Accountable." I hated the title. This wasn't about sisterhood. This was about accountability. About people in power thinking no one would ever call their bluff. About systems built to reward speed and silence instead of safety. But the article did one thing I couldn't. It made the public care. And in a system like ours, sometimes outrage is the only currency that spends faster than a checkbook. I spent the next few days wrapping up loose ends. I testified again, this time in a closed-door ethics review. I handed over everything: documents, messages, the burner phone. I didn't hold back, not because I wanted revenge, because I needed to be done. When I walked out of that room, it was like stepping into daylight after months in a bunker. I didn't feel victorious, but I did feel free. That same night, I packed up my apartment. I wasn't resigning, my Navy career was still intact, but I was requesting reassignment. Something low profile. Overseas, maybe. Somewhere far from press cycles and contractors and family names carved into D.C. buildings. Before I left, I dropped a package in the mail. Inside, a flash drive with all my records, a signed letter of resignation from any future contact with Stratwell, and a note to Kate. All it said was, "No more silence." I didn't need to wait for a reply. I knew she wouldn't send one. Because for the first time in her life, my sister didn't have anything left to say. The morning I flew out for reassignment, I didn't check the news. I didn't call anyone. I didn't post some vague quote on social media about new chapters or fresh starts. I just grabbed my duffel, zipped it shut, and stepped out into the cold gray D.C. morning like any other sailor heading back to duty. Except this time, there was no ceremony, no send-off. No family breakfast with Kate smirking across the table while our parents pretended everything was fine. That version of my life was gone. And for once, I was okay with it. At the terminal, a man in civilian clothes stopped me while I waited in line for boarding. "You're Lieutenant Commander Walker, right?" I nodded, already bracing for another question I didn't want to answer. He extended a hand. "I just wanted to say what you did mattered. I've got a nephew in the infantry. He reads everything you've been part of, like it's gospel. You didn't just shake the system, you gave it a pulse." I didn't say much, just thanked him, shook his hand, and boarded. People like him weren't the reason I did any of this, but they were the reason it was worth it. Halfway through the flight, I stared out the window and thought about how the whole thing started my promotion party, Kate pouring that wine, making sure I felt small in a room full of my own colleagues. That smug, practiced laugh. The kind of cruelty that doesn't draw blood but still cuts deep. That was her opening move. And her last mistake. Because if she'd just kept her ego in check just once, I might have let the rest slide. I probably would have never looked into Stratwell. I would have never met Jordan again. Vanessa wouldn't have chased the story. None of it. But Kate couldn't help herself. She needed to remind me who she thought I was. And that reminder made me realize who I actually wasn't, someone willing to let things slide to keep the peace. That was her real miscalculation. Not the software, not the contracts, me. Somewhere over the Atlantic, the pilot made an announcement. Minor turbulence ahead, nothing serious. I smiled at that because turbulence was exactly how all of this began. Not some explosive event, just friction, pressure, a current that wouldn't hold. And once that pressure built, the system shook. When I landed, there was no reception, just military protocol, a dusty base, a salty breeze, exactly what I needed. 2 days later, I got a secure message through the Navy's internal comms. It was from a junior officer at the Pentagon, someone I'd never met. The subject line: "They're rewriting the procurement protocols. You started something." That's all it said. No signature, no follow-up, but it was more than enough. Because in a system as slow and stubborn as defense contracting, even a rewrite is a revolution. Vanessa's last article came out later that week. She called it, "The Cost of Silence: What We Learned from the Walker Scandal." She didn't sensationalize it. No melodrama. Just facts, timelines, and a reminder that the cost of inaction is always paid by the people who don't have power. Her closing line stuck with me. When family and national duty collide, most people run. Natalie Walker didn't. I didn't know how to respond to that. So I didn't. Let the record speak. A few months passed. The scandal quieted. Stratwell's new CEO issued a very carefully worded apology to those affected by our lack of clarity during the demonstration phase. In other words, sorry we got caught. Kate officially stepped down and disappeared from public view. No jail, no trial. Just exile, dressed as personal leave. But her name? It no longer got her into rooms without questions. And our parents? They never called again. I wasn't surprised. They built their loyalty around her success. Once that was gone, there wasn't much left to build on. But family isn't about shared blood. It's about shared values. And mine? Mine were forged with steel and salt water, not boardrooms and press statements. One night, Jordan sent me a photo. It was of an old military base bulletin board. Someone had pinned up a printout of Vanessa's first article. A red circle was drawn around one sentence. "We don't need perfection, we need headlines." Two next. And underneath, in marker, someone had written, "Then maybe we need new leadership." That's what revenge looks like when you do it right. Not explosions, not scandals. Policy, change, consequences. Kate tried to humiliate me in front of people who respected me. She tried to bury me under lies she paid others to write. She tried to turn my own name into a weapon. But in the end, the only thing buried was her credibility. And the only name anyone remembered was mine. If this story moved you, and you're drawn to family revenge stories rooted in real-world power, truth, and military honor, subscribe. We bring you more stories that don't just entertain, but hit where it matters. Loyalty, justice, consequences.